Anybody who's watched my video on Me, Natalie might recall me saying that I love a film that will switch genres. Me, Natalie starts off as a heavy drama, but then suddenly shifts into a rom-com. Well, today I want to talk about my favorite movie that refuses to stick to a single genre.
Who's DS?
Well, he may or may not be Victor Fox's homosexual lover.
This is a side-splitting comedy. This is a gut-wrenching drama. This is a thriller. This is a musical. This is the 2002, whatever genre it wants to be, Unconditional Love. The film opens up with homemaker Grace Beasley making breakfast for her and her husband while listening to Victor Fox, a Liberace-type musician she's a huge fan of. It is announced on the television that he is in Chicago, and the first 5 callers will win a front row ticket to a televised concert. Grace immediately grabs the phone, and to her surprise, she's one of the 5. But before she can claim her ticket, her husband hits her with a bombshell.
We need to discuss our marriage.
Our marriage?
A fair warning, this film will switch genres pretty rapidly. So to help you figure out the tone, I'm going to put up an emoji on the top corner to let you know what emotion you're supposed to currently be feeling.
Is it terrible? Should I be afraid?
I don't want to be married anymore.
In a state of shock, Grace hangs up the phone before she can collect her winning. Now all alone, Grace feels that maybe if her husband sees her on TV, he will find her interesting again and come back. She calls back the TV station to explain the situation.
See, that ticket was more than a ticket to me. It was a tiny, shining piece of hope.
The guy says he'll see what he can do, but he can't make any promises. While all of this is happening, a serial killer is loose in Chicago, being called the Crossbow Killer. Convinced the guy will come through with a ticket, Grace prepares for the concert. At the 11th hour, the guy does come through and she makes it to the concert. Waiting for Victor to come on stage, the concert is unexpectedly canceled when Victor Fox is found murdered by the Crossbow Killer. Distraught, Grace and her daughter-in-law Maudie go to the crime scene and find themselves in the bar that Victor was in right before he got murdered. The bartender sells Grace the alleged mug that Victor drinks out of, and tells Grace that one of the last things Victor said before leaving the bar is, "A life lived in fear is not much fun." This awakens something in Grace, and she realizes that she needs to go to England to go to Victor Fox's funeral and get closure. This leads to one of my favorite lines in the entire film.
What did you call it? Closure.
Oh, can't you close here? You've got the mug.
Sidebar, I just have to say, this line is a close second favorite of mine.
We love gay youth.
Oh, Lynn Redgrave. Thank you for always bringing joy into my life. Anyways, on the flight to England, the plane hits some bumpy air, and the passenger sitting next to Grace decides it's up to her to calm everyone down.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
The passenger sitting next to Grace is Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews is in the cockpit.
Thank God.
Shortly after arriving in England, Grace meets a man named Dirk. Dirk is Victor Fox's valet driver, who is squatting at Victor's house, claiming that the house was left to him. From a valid source, Grace finds out that Dirk is claiming to be Victor Fox's secret lover. Grace realizes the claim must be true and tries to come to Dirk's aid by doing completely normal things like breaking into the house and cooking him breakfast or tending to the lawn. But her actions are not appreciated by Dirk.
His whole life he had to pretend he was this heterosexual lover boy just so he could sell his music to sad, lonely, middle-aged housewives like you. And he hated it. He hated all of you. He hated his life of lies.
Realizing he might have gone too far, Dirk extends an olive branch out to Grace, and they begin talking. They come to realize that they actually have a lot in common. They both gave up who they were to be with someone who ultimately did not treat them well. Needing to get out of the house, the two embark on a zany bike ride where they crash into a singing pub. While at this pub, Dirk gets the idea that he wants to go to Chicago to avenge Victor's death, as a means to matter again.
Vengeance won't bring Victor back.
No, but it will bring us back.
How?
We'll matter again.
But there are other ways we can matter.
Grace, if I was the valet and you were the wife, neither of us has existed for some time.
Grace agrees and brings Dirk to Chicago. Now with the help of Grace's daughter-in-law, they will brace the seedy underground of Chicago to come face to face with a serial killer. And of course, a film like this wouldn't be complete without a random musical number with Barry Manilow and Sally Jesse Raphael. Honestly, I was not being rash when I said this film did not stick to one genre. This film is all over the place, but in the best way. Unconditional Love was written and directed by P.J. Hogan. And if you look at some of the work he's done, you can see that he's always been a bit of a rebel when it comes to formula. His big claim to fame was writing and directing the 1994 sleeper hit, Muriel's Wedding. The film was advertised as this hysterical fun comedy, and it definitely is, but it also hits the viewer hard with issues such as self-esteem, cancer, paralysis, and suicide. Basically, the film is also depressing as f***. P.J. Hogan also directed the 1997 film, My Best Friend's Wedding. This film hit every trope of the rom-com genre, which was oversaturating theaters at the time. But in this particular film, the main character is intentionally flawed and, in the end, has to accept the fact that what she wants may not be what she's entitled to. The film was a breath of fresh air and was a huge hit. That being said, I'm afraid P.J. Hogan might have gone a little too far for people's comfort when he made Unconditional Love. The film was slated for a release in the year 2000, but was continuously pushed back until 2002. And in the United States, it didn't even get a theatrical release, but instead was released on cable TV in 2003. As much as I love this film, I can't fully fault the film studio for doing this. I mean, it's a great film, but how would this film have been marketed? Not sticking to a genre can be uncomfortable at first because we're used to viewing films a certain way, but I can't stress this enough. It's not a bad film. This movie is all over the place and a bit surreal, but in a weird way, it's also the closest thing to real life. When I reflect on my life, hell, when I reflect on the past week of my life, there have been moments that were funny and sad and even a bit scary. I might have even belted out a tune or two. Life doesn't stick to one genre, so why should a movie have to? That being said, I doubt I'd ever have a moment in my life where I'm performing a musical number with Sally Jesse Raphael. But if that day comes, I definitely won't take it for granted. I think Unconditional Love was very brave for doing something so unconventional, and I'll be the first to admit that it's not for everyone, but I can't help loving it unconditionally. See what I did there? I truly feel it's an underrated film, and I strongly recommend you check it out. If you've seen this movie, I'd love to know your thoughts on the film. You can always leave a comment below or on my Instagram at @officialDavesLostandFound. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to explore more underrated movies, please check out my other videos and be sure to like and subscribe. I always look forward to chatting with people about these movies, so I hope to hear from you soon. And as always, until next time.